Today we are going to be building one of the best value gaming PCs for the money, and it's also going to be hitting pretty hard in terms of performance. Now the parts we've selected here, we're going with a budget 850 watt power supply. It's not modular or anything like that, but you can save a bit of money with non-modular power supplies, and in this case I managed to save over $50 just because the cables were stuck to the power supply. So not a bad little deal there if you ask me. But then we've also got the M.2 NVMe drive, 1 terabyte budget, as well as 32 gigabytes of G.Skill 6000 megahertz memory, and this is all going to be powered off the Ryzen 7 7700. Now this CPU right now, I believe it is the CPU to get if you are building a mid-range or even a high-end gaming PC if you're going to be playing at higher resolutions, especially 1440p and 4K. And I recently tested the Ryzen 7 7700 and I was actually really impressed, especially when you couple it in with decent DDR5 memory, the performance that you can get out of this thing. And so I think this CPU for most people is going to be an absolute no-brainer, where you can pick it up, shipped to your door for as little as 150 USD, making it much more cheaper than the X3D chips. And especially if you're going with a mid-range graphics card, which is what we're doing here today, an RTX 3080 Ti, you can really just make something that will just give you such good performance for the dollar. Now with this GPU right here, the RTX 3080 Ti, we did pick this up off the used market, and so one thing that I do recommend if you're picking up a mid or high-end GPU off the used market is to always just check and change the thermal paste. And we're doing this right before we start this build, just to make sure that we don't come into any temperature problems later on in the build. Now for the motherboard, we're going with this Budget Pro 650M-E. Now this thing is really not that good for anything above an 8 core. If you're going for like a 12 or a 16 core, I would recommend a better motherboard. But in this case, we picked this motherboard up, I believe, for around $60 US when I was in Japan. So it just makes for an absolute bargain board. And since it's B650, we do get the advantage of still locking in the curve optimizer with Precision Boost Overdrive in the BIOS, as opposed to say an A620. Though if you did have a little bit more budget to spend, this would probably be the first component I would swap out in today's build. Now for the cooler, we've got a Wraith Prism, and we managed to get this off the used market as well. A lot of people sell these coolers still to this day very cheap. In this case, it looks like this one is actually brand new, since it's still got the thermal paste on the back. The last component of this build is an FSP case. And so I've never tried an FSP case before. This is the S380. And so what we're gonna do is check out later on when we build this PC up while we're gaming, what the temperatures are like on the CPU and the GPU, especially with the case panel on versus off, to just see if this case is okay, especially with a mid-range build like this. However, you guys may be wondering, how much does it cost to get this build right now? I'm actually gonna put up two different price sets on the screen for you. One is what I paid for all these components, and then the other is just what I can find these components for at the cheapest market rate on what you're able to get these parts for right now. With all that out of the way, let's quickly build this thing up and then also test out its gaming performance to see how it stacks up for the money. And we'll do that right after today's video sponsor. Do you need to get Windows 10 or Windows 11 activated and don't want to spend $200 or some other exorbitant price? Well, if so, today's video sponsor, VIP SCD Keys, has you covered. For as little as $15 using the coupon code BFTYC, you can get Windows 10 activated, and for a little bit more, you can get Windows 11 activated too. Links in the description below to find out more. So this build was actually really easy to put together. It's all up and running and seems fine, but one complaint I've got already is with the motherboard, and that is the fact that we don't have a USB-C connection on this thing, nor do we even have a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header, not even one of them. So I actually had to add in my own addressable RGB controller. I mean, you can get these off AliExpress for I think like $1. I remember the last time they were $1, I just ordered a heap of them. So we had to add in our own RGB controller for this build. But now we're in the BIOS, and what I do here is I just quickly tune up the settings with things that I know that works, and I'm gonna get really good extra performance just by doing these simple things. First of all is to lock in our XMP profiles. Just clicking that button there should work. But then if we hit F7 on our keyboard, we can go to advanced settings here and then just go to the advanced tab. And I also like to make sure resizable bar is turned on, as well as making sure our GPU is in Gen 4, because we've got a Gen 4 graphics card, and that's X16 mode. That should be locked in as well. Then we're going to go down to AMD overclocking here, go to accept, but then also got to the precision boost overdrive here, enter, and then go down to advanced, and then just go down to the curve optimizer here, and then just go to all cores, and then go to negative. And I like to lock in 10 steps. I find that that works even on the really basic air coolers. We shouldn't have any performance problems with 10 steps here. Of course, if we're comfortable and that's working absolutely fine, we can try and boost it up to 20 or something like that. The last tab here is we're going to go back to the main menu here and then just go down to security and then just go to this trusted computing right here and then disable that, and then also to secure boot and disable that. Now you may be wondering, why are we doing this? The reason being is we're going to OT. Now IoT LTSC Enterprise is actually, in my opinion, for Windows 11 especially, the best version of Windows you can get. And I also do really prefer on my main PC Windows 10 Enterprise IoT as well. These are just stripped down windows, and I find that they just work incredibly well with games, which we're going to be putting to the test with the 0.1% lows in multiplayer titles here today to make sure that we're not getting, I believe people have told me, oh Brian, do you get the AM dip on your AMD CPUs where the 0.1% lows just stutter and they go really bad? And I just said, well, I actually don't really come into that, and I do believe a big reason for that is because we're using one of the best windows out there. And we're just waiting for this whole PC actually to reconfigure right now because it does take a while once you lock in all these settings before it can boot up again. But after about a minute, it should boot up into Windows 11, IoT install, and we can now install our games and see how this thing performs.
Cooking is hard.
So before we start playing games, we've got a little bit of an issue here, and that is, of course, with not just the temperatures on the GPU, but also the CPU is running a little bit too hot. And it's really weird because the actual cooler itself is not getting hot to touch, but then the CPU temperatures can go up to around 90 degrees, even the high 90 degrees. And this is even with the side panel off. So I know it's not the case that's causing these high temperatures. Though in the case of this MSI Ventus, we just got MSI'd, and that this cooler right here is not that great. So it's really underperforming in terms of me. I've already changed the thermal paste, and out of the box it just thermal throttles. But then also, even with an undervolt, it's just managing to stay under 80 degrees. Whether it's with the side panel on or off, it doesn't matter. So it's not the case's fault. And even when I undervolted this thing, it's still just barely staying under 80 degrees. I would like this card to sit in the 70s if possible. So I'm just going to try tune the undervolts a little bit more here, and then also reseat the CPU cooler to see if we can bring temperatures down a little bit more. So coming back now about 20 minutes later, and we got some really good news, and that is the CPU, the temperature problems just ended up being the included thermal paste on the cooler itself. And this is kind of new to me because I've never seen included thermal paste go so hard and just essentially go off where you can't use it anymore because it was not making any contact. And the weirdest thing was you could see like the imprints of that thermal paste on the CPU, and also after changing and cleaning it all off and changing the thermal paste, we've now got temperatures that are well under 70 degrees. So I'm really happy now with the CPU temps, and especially what looks like it's giving out good performance. But you also may notice while we're running this benchmark just in heaven, the actual wattage is lower because the temperatures are lower. And that's something I have noticed, especially on Ryzen 7000 series CPUs. So you do want to keep your CPU as cool as possible. Though just below that, the MSI Ventus, there was really no fixing this thing except for just raising the fan speed. So we've got a manual 60% fan speed here, and that seems to be doing the job, at least with the side panel off. And so the maximum temperatures we are seeing here is 73 degrees with the side panel off and the GPU undervolted. And so what we're gonna do is put the side panel back on quickly and see what the temperatures go to, and also start testing this out in some multiplayer games.
So we've now finished testing 3 different multiplayer titles, and it's actually really good news for the actual numbers themselves, where we got the worst number of 30 on the 0.1% lows. But in Warcraft 3, so with a 0.1% low of 30, it's really not bad considering how long the games themselves were. And then we went over to Counter-Strike 2, and I played this just for about 10 minutes as well, and we saw the worst on the 0.1% lows, there being 105. And for these 3 games, we did test at 1080p high settings. Of course, we got the option to lower the settings and even use DLSS if we're playing at 1440p to get even higher FPS than that of 1080p high settings. So a few options we can do here. However, the gaming numbers, they look pretty good, but here's where I'm going to start picking apart this build and sort of giving you guys a bit of a warning. If you want to build a value-orientated PC like this, there'd be a few things I'd change. The first of which is the case itself. This S380 from SFP, the cooling is just simply not good enough. When I fixed all the cooling problems with the GPU and the CPU cooler, we ended up putting the side panel on and even turning up the fans to 100% in the BIOS. We still got a 10-degree increase on the CPU temperatures, and the 3080 Ti still started thermal throttling after a given 10 minutes of stress testing in Unigine heavens. So in terms of this case, and at least the out-of-the-box settings with mid-range components, it's a bit of a miss here, especially when you take off the side panel and you're getting much better cooling results. That means just that the airflow is not optimized. And kind of like my visualization with some of these cases is that they need either a better configuration where, say, it's got a 5-fan configuration pulling air from the bottom and out through the top, which this case looks like it's capable of doing. But at this point in time, we've just got this airflow. I can just show you guys a clip where the airflow should be coming in at least kind of like a 45-degree angle from the side rather than just coming in at this 90-degree angle, hitting the glass and doing nothing. So these kind of case designs, they look nice, but if the airflow is a miss, in which in this case it is a complete miss, both metaphorically and literally, you're just not going to get the right cooling performance. And that's, I think, the biggest problem with this case. So I think it looks pretty cool, but in terms of any decent cooling performance, it's really missing the mark here, as we're seeing with these numbers. Also in terms of the motherboard, I decided just to check the temperatures while we're benchmarking with the IR camera, and the motherboard was okay with the top-down cooler, the Wraith Prism, blowing air and sort of that help cooling down the VRM there. I think this motherboard, even though it's one of the worst B650s you can get, coupled in with a Ryzen 7700 with Precision Boost Overdrive working fine, and then also playing games as opposed to just, say, running Cinebench 24/7, the motherboard's actually doing okay. And so coming into this build, the component that I thought would be the worst actually ended up being okay. It was actually the case and the GPU that both let me down. The GPU needing, as we said before and as we showed before, needing a heavy undervolt just to remain even somewhat relevant in the realm of normal. And then the case itself, of course, having to have the side glass off to remain in the realm of normal. So if I had to choose things again, I would just get a front 3 fans, back 1 fan, push-pull configuration. The simple cases, I think if you're on a budget or you're looking for some of the best value cases, the simple ones just with that push-pull configuration with the mesh front, that's just tried and trusted. It's going to give you good temperatures. I've tested out a heap of these in the past. Even the ones that are budget do a much better job than what this fish tank will do. And then for the GPU, just really anything but a Ventus, and you should be okay there. Anyhow, guys, with all that out of the way, hope you enjoyed today's build. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. Also, let us know in the comment section below what you think of this build right here. What would be some of the components that you would change? And also, do you agree with the changes that I've personally put forward that I would change in this build here? Love reading your thoughts and opinions as always, and I'll see you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.